Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last. Father, I stretch my hands to thee. No other help I know, if thou withdraw thyself from me, oh, whither shall I go? Here we find Jesus speaking his last words from the cross. After he has given instructions to his mother, uttered a word of assurance to those hanging beside him, cried out to God for understanding, and noted that the work he has been sent to do is complete. The Bible allows us to hear the last words that proceed from the lips of Jesus. These words that we hear Jesus speaking are interesting, they are powerful and comforting all at the same time. Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. These words uttered by Christ are not unique to him, but they are borrowed from the Psalter. These words have been whispered before as David, a man after God's own heart, decided to put them to paper in Psalm 31, verse 5. I find it interesting that as Jesus hung on a cross, and after all that he had said and done, in the final moments of his life, his parting words were taken from the scriptures. As I read this text, I couldn't help but wonder why it is that Jesus would select these words as his last. Why would Jesus in his final moment choose to converse with the God that sent him rather than the people he was sent to save? As I sat with the last words of Jesus, I often wondered why Christ, the parable teller, the sermon preacher, the lesson giver, did not decide to lead the crowd with a thought-provoking sermon in his final moments of life. Jesus talks to God on the behalf of the people. Father, forgive them. He offers pardon to the criminals hanging beside him. Today you will be with me. He makes preparations for his mother. Behold your son. Behold your mother. He questions God. Why have you forsaken me? He names his needs. I thirst. He states the completeness of his work. It is finished. And then he ends this conversation between him and God. Into your hands I commend my spirit. It would seem that Jesus had a lot to say, and I couldn't help but ask the question, why would Jesus go out like this? Scholars have suggested that Psalm 31 is an individual prayer denoting both help from distress and confidence. Not confidence on the part of the one who is praying, but in the one to whom the prayer is directed, and not distress as in hopelessness, but as in a realization that our refuge is in God. So as Jesus speaks these words to God, he is primarily noting two things. One, God, I am confident in your ability to take care of me. And two, because of my confidence in you, I take refuge in your hands. As Jesus speaks these words, he is submitting to the prayer that he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. Not my will, but thy will be done. It's not just important to know what Jesus said, but we must take into account how Jesus said it. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. Or as the Gullah translation of the Bible reads, Jesus hollered and said, Father, I give over my spirit for you to take care of me. The way that Jesus speaks is crucial because it leads me to believe that the final words were not only meant for God, but they were intended for the crowd as well. If Jesus would have just desired a conversation between he and God, he would have kept it within his heart. Or as my grandmother would say, he would have whispered a little prayer, but he decides to holler these words out. Maybe there is something that Jesus wanted us to learn. I wonder why Jesus would state it is finished and then come back in such a dramatic manner. At one point, I read this text and I said, okay, Jesus, you're being just a bit dramatic. But then it all made sense. I believe that somewhere between my God, why hast thou forsaken me, and Father, into thy hands, Jesus went into a place of reflection. He recalled the work of God, and he reminded himself of God's ability to protect. And Jesus couldn't leave us without telling us that our total dependence must be in God. As Jesus cries out, Father, into thy hands I commend thy spirit, he is teaching us two crucial lessons. One, we must learn to take sanctuary in the one who has proven time and time again that he could adequately protect us. We cannot miss the importance of Jesus taking refuge in his moment of distress. If Jesus had to find sanctuary, who are we to think that we can continue through life and figure things out on our own? If Jesus, the strong and powerful Savior, had to learn to take refuge in God, beloved, we should be confident enough to do the same. It had been said that individuals such as Polycarp and Luther have also used the words of Psalm 31 at their moments of death. And that is great to know that in our moments, our final moments, we can state our trust and dependence in God. But I wonder if we can also make this declaration as we go throughout life. The beautiful thing about Jesus is that he doesn't wait until he's dying to seek sanctuary, but time and time again we witness Jesus centering down, moving away from the noise, and finding shelter in God. And maybe as Jesus hollered these words, the hope was that we would listen and be reminded of how good it is to depend on someone greater than ourselves. Not only are we reminded in the necessity of taking refuge, especially from a world that wishes to destroy us, but in Jesus' final cry, he tells us that God has powerful and capable hands. When I was growing up in Gillville, North Carolina, we'd sing a song at Daisy Chapel Missionary Baptist Church that said, he's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. And back then, I didn't grasp the fullness and powerfulness of that song. It sounded good to me, but because of my innocence, I didn't understand just what it meant. But now, at 27 years old, that song takes a different meaning. In a world where black and brown bodies have been lynched and shot down all the day long, and we wonder why we are still here to fight and tell the story, it's good to be reminded that God holds the whole world. When we cannot understand the pain and anguish that we have to endure, it's good to have a reminder that God holds the entire world. When our government seems to become crazier and more hate-filled by the day, it's good to know that God holds the entire world. It's good to know that the world is in the hands of the divine creator, even when we are regularly expected to produce and never allowed to imagine. It's good to know that God holds the whole world, although the world around us seems to be crashing down. Because if the world were in our hands, it would fail. It would fail because our hands are not as strong as we think they are. The world in our hands would collapse because our hands are made of flesh and blood, but God's hands made flesh and blood. And that is why I'm glad to know that God still holds the world in God's hand. This week for me has been a reminder that our hands are limited. But in the hands of God, we have an unlimited possibility. In the hands of God, we have protection that will never end. And although at the moment it may seem like death has the final say, although it may look like our dreams will never come to pass, although the current state of things may lead us to believe that we will never recover, we must be reminded that as long as we are in the hands of God, everything will be all right. Although Jesus has to face death on a cross, he notes that for the time being, the cross and the world can hold on to his body, but his spirit they just can't have. He conquers death with confidence and assurance. Jesus makes it clear that if he must be killed by the state, at the very least, he will still claim agency over where his spirit goes. And beloved, just as Jesus left us with a valuable lesson, whenever it is or whatever it is, put it in the hands of God. Because if the hands of God are good enough for Jesus, they're good enough for us. Into your hands I commend my spirit, my power, my plans, everything that I am, all that I want to be, I offer it up to you. I commend to you my worries, calm them. God, I commend to you my fears, remove them. I commend to you my wrongs, right them. I commend to you my plans, redirect them. I commend to you my mind, use it. I commend to you my body, protect it. I commend to you my hands, strengthen them. I commend to you my ministry, sustain it. Lord, I offer all of me. Take it and make something of it that I myself am able to see. And that is why I can say with assurance, Father, I stretch my hands to thee. No other help I know. If thou withdraw thyself from me, whither shall I go? What did thine only Son endure before I drew my breath? What pain, what labor to secure my soul from endless death? Surely thou canst not let me die. Oh, speak, and I shall live. And here I am, unwearied, lie to die. Thy spirit give, author of faith. To thee I live, my weary longing eyes. Oh, let me now receive that gift. My soul without it dies. Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. Amen.